Welcome to On Demand Module 3, Teaching Success with Inside Level C through E. My name is Sean Lowry, National Technology Consultant for National Geographic Learning, and I will be your presenter for this session. This is one of 5 on-demand training modules to help prepare you to use Insight in your classroom. Hopefully you have already viewed Module 1, Start the Year Off Right with Insight. If not, you may want to stop this session now and view it. If you are using Insight Levels A and B, be sure to view Module 2, and if your school or district has purchased Insight eAssessment and/or the Online Coach, please be sure to view Module 4 or 5 to help get you started. If you would like to know more about eAssessment or Online Coach, please contact your local representative. In this session, we will be taking a thorough look at the instruction in Insight Levels C through E. We'll begin with the unit launch, focus on genre and focus on vocabulary lessons, which set the stage for learning. Next, we'll take a detailed look at the reading selection, instruction including the selection overview, language and grammar, and prepared to read lessons. Then we will focus on the writing comprehensive writing projects that are directly linked to the writing and to the genre. And finally, we will take an in-depth look at the assessment tools Insight offers for progress monitoring and reteaching. Okay, let's begin by reviewing the instructional path for each unit. Each unit begins with a unit launch that includes a focus on genre and focus on vocabulary lesson. Next, we move into the selection instruction. Each unit includes 3 reading selections with explicit instruction in language and grammar, vocabulary, and the reading strategy for the unit. While students are reading the selections, they will also be working on their writing project. The writing in Insight is carefully coordinated so that your students read and write every day. And finally, the unit wrap-up gives students the opportunity to compare across texts and reflect upon their own reading. Please turn to a unit launch in your Teacher's Edition. For this session, I'll be using Level C Unit 1 as an example, but everything that I share will be applicable to Levels D and E as well. If you focus on the purpose of each lesson rather than the specific content, you will be able to easily apply what you learn to the level you are working with because each unit follows the same pattern. The main goals of the unit launch are to engage the students and set the stage for learning by making connections and exploring the guiding question, which is the driving force of each unit. We'll focus on the guiding question in a moment, but let's first look at how Insight helps students make connections into the unit theme. We begin by having students study a visual with a focus on visualization while they share, discuss, and make connections. The next step, the read aloud, is essential when it comes to helping students make connections to the unit theme. Reading aloud to students is a proven way to build background knowledge, promote vocabulary, and language development while increasing a comprehension. If you have a post-it handy, go ahead and tab page R3. You'll find the R pages right before the Writing tab in the back of your Teacher's Edition. At the top of page R3, you will see specific directions for the first and second reading. The purpose of the first reading is to model fluent reading using appropriate phrasing, intonation, and inflection. In the second read, the goal is to model how to use the comprehension strategy and focus attention on key vocabulary words. A more detailed description of the read aloud routine is found on page R2. Each read aloud provides opportunities to introduce and focus on the meanings of academic vocabulary and to ask interpretive questions about the text. Following the read aloud, students share and compare the connections they've made based on the read aloud and the visual. Now it's time to explore the guiding question for the unit. As a reminder, guiding questions are the engaging and enduring questions we all face. They give students insight into questions central to their lives and make reading matter. Guiding questions, or GQs, help students set authentic purposes for reading. They allow verbal, artistic, and dramatic responses. And guiding questions have no easy answer, which allows students to become active participants in their own learning. Here you see some examples of the guiding questions found in Inside. Take a look at the guiding question in your unit. Students begin with a discussion about the title of the unit, in this case, Finding Your Own Place. Now it's time to pose the guiding question, what defines a home? And students are invited to discuss the guiding question. Probing questions that help guide the discussion are provided in the teacher wrap. Now it's time for students to make a class mind map that they will add to throughout the unit. These graphic organizers take students step by step through the hidden thinking processes that proficient readers and writers habitually use. Multi-level strategies are provided to ensure that all students participate in the creation of the class mind map. Take a moment to read through these strategies and notice the difference in each level. These multi-level strategies are a perfect form for helping differentiate instruction in your classroom, and they are provided throughout the instruction. As you wrap up the mind map, students synthesize ideas, develop their own mind map, and do so in their practice book. Inside provides students with multiple opportunities to read more. Each unit includes a content library book that relates directly to the unit theme, and students have the choice to read books related to the guiding question in the Inside library. These books offer extended reading opportunities at a variety of reading levels and genres. Special in-book supports make these titles accessible to striving readers and English learners. And don't forget that there are student journals that students can download on their own on the Inside Learning website, as well as the teacher's guides for each book that are available on the Inside Teaching website. The Inside Learning site also provides some additional online reading that relates directly to the unit theme and guiding question. In your Teacher's Edition, prior to each unit launch, you will find the extended reading page for the unit. This page provides details for each book, including the reading level, reading strategy prompts, and details on how the text relates to the guiding question. Take a moment to look over all of the valuable information provided. Following the unit launch, it's time to move on to the Focus on Genre and Focus on Vocabulary lessons. Both of these lessons provide the front-loading necessary for students to be successful with the selections they are about to read within the unit. The Focus on Genre lesson, students learn about the aspect of a genre, or the defining elements or underlying structures of the genre, and the Focus on Vocabulary lesson provides explicit instruction for a vocabulary strategy that students will apply across the three selections in the unit. The Focus on Genre and Focus on Vocabulary lessons, as well as many other throughout the Inside program, are organized to move responsibly to the students through the gradual release of the responsibility model, in which the teacher gradually withdraws support as the student becomes more and more competent in performing a skill. In the Focus on Genre lesson, students first make connections to the genre. Then you teach and model what it is that you want the students to learn. Then it's time for students to practice what they've learned. As you can see, there are three levels of practice. Structured practice occurs with you, the teacher. Guided practice gives students the opportunity to practice on their own, but with you there for support if they need it. And independent practice is when they finally take what they've learned and apply it on their own. This direct, explicit instruction is an integral part of Inside. Be sure to read Dr. David Moore's author monograph, Direct Instruction, Targeted Strategies for Student Success, on page PD 19, for a more detailed description of each step in the gradual release model. Let's take a more in-depth look at the Focus on Genre lesson. As we just saw, the gradual release model begins with having the students make connections. Take a look at the pencil and crayons you see on the slide and think about one or two ways these two objects are alike and how they are different. Each Focus on Genre lesson will begin with a simple activity like this that puts the genre element into real-life terms. In the next step, Teach Model, read aloud the introduction that is provided in the student book and provide an additional explanation from the teacher wrap to teach the genre element. Then the modeling takes place in the How It Works section. Go ahead and read what's been provided in the teacher wrap and on the student page. The How It Works part of the lesson provided gives a detailed, student-friendly explanation of the genre and gives an example that students can study. Each Focus on Genre lesson also introduces academic vocabulary that is relevant to the genre. As you can see here, directions for Vocabulary Routine 1 are provided in the bottom of the teacher wrap. In the front of your Teacher's Edition, behind the Teaching Routines and Strategies tab, you will find 12 different vocabulary routines that students will use throughout Insight. Now it's time for the structured practice in Practice Together, which includes choral reading and reading aloud as the students identify the elements of the genre, in this case, signal words. Next is the guided practice in the Try It section, where students apply what they've learned as you provide support as needed. Notice the red arrows under the Try It section on the right? This is on-the-spot corrective feedback. These are tips for modifying instruction when students need additional support, and they are built right into the lessons in Insight. Finally, students have the opportunity to apply what they've learned independently in their practice book. The next slide will take you directly to the Insight in Action website, where you can watch an Insight teacher deliver the Focus on Genre selection. The video will start automatically, but depending upon your internet connection, it may take a few moments to load. The entire video will take approximately 25 minutes. If you don't have time to watch it now, it's available 24/7 on Insight Teaching under the Professional Development link, where you are currently viewing this piece. The Focus on Vocabulary lesson explicitly teaches a word learning strategy and how to use it. This strategy is then carried through the unit in a scaffolded instructional plan. Take a moment to pause this session and explore the Focus on Vocabulary lesson so you can experience the power of this instruction and focus on the gradual release model. When you have finished, click play to resume the session. As you studied the instruction, did you notice the application of the gradual release model and the introduction of the new academic vocabulary? How about the strategy in action, which provides an on-page think aloud for the students? And the multi-level strategies that help you provide support to students at all levels? All of these instructional supports help you model the vocabulary strategy explicitly, guide the students to use, and then provide opportunities to apply the strategy independently. Now it's time to move into the selection instruction. Remember, there are 3 selections per unit, and just like each unit, each reading selection follows the same instructional pattern. The first step in each selection is the selection overview. Next is the beginning of the language and grammar instruction. Then it's time for the Prepare to Read lesson, where students are introduced to the key vocabulary and reading strategy they will be working on. Following the Prepare to Read lesson, it's time to read the selection. At the end of each selection, students deepen their understanding and extend their learning across the language arts through the Connect Reading and Writing and Connect across the curriculum lessons. We will now take a deeper look at each of these lessons. Turn with me to the selection overview for your current or next reading selection. The goal of the selection overview is to help build background for the students before they begin reading. First, it's important to share the instructional path with the students so they are aware of the strategies and skills they will learn. Now it's time to build their background by viewing the digital library video and making connections. And notice again that there are multi-level strategies available so you can differentiate instruction so all your students can participate in making connections. Speaking of the digital library, because we are National Geographic, we have access to the best possible tool for building background, the National Geographic Digital Library of Fabulous Videos. Of course, all students benefit from this kind of compelling content and visuals to build background and activate prior knowledge. However, we didn't just pick up the original National Geographic audio. Rather, we re-scripted it to be absolutely sure it's accessible for all students, especially English learners, and each video is also closed captioned. It's easy to find the appropriate video for each selection on the Inside Teaching site under the Access Resources link. When playing it directly from the website, it's a good idea to let the complete video load before watching. For each video, students have a critical viewing guide in their practice books. However, it's important to allow students to watch the video once without having to focus on taking notes. This allows them to get absorbed in the video or images and just enjoy. Since these are such short videos, it's easy to watch them twice and have students complete their viewing guide the second time. The next slide will take you to the Inside Teaching login page. Take a few moments to log in and watch the digital library clip for your current or next selection. Now that we've built background, we are ready to begin front-loading the language and grammar. Inside provides a consistent and systematic plan for instruction in the forms and functions of grammar and language development. The language and grammar instruction allows students to try out language, learn grammar, and apply their new learning on their own. We begin with explicit instruction of a language function providing special supports for English learners. Our first step in this process is to tap students' prior knowledge by getting them to talk about something that relates to the language function at hand. In this case, they are focusing on expressing ideas and feelings, so we start off by getting them to talk about what they think and feel. Next, students get the opportunity to try out the language and hear a model of the language. These models include chants, conversations, and interviews. This audio support and modeling helps students learn the new language function. If you don't have English learners in your class, you can skip this part of the lesson, or if you only have a small group of English learners, this lesson can be delivered during your small group instruction. The grammar instruction in Inside is carefully sequenced across each level and spiraled from level to ensure comprehensive instruction. For each selection in the student book, a series of 5 lessons target one grammar topic. This focus and repetition helps students integrate correct language structures into their oral and written communication. Pages PD 52 and PD 53 in the front of your Teacher's Edition provide you with an at-a-glance view of the 5-step plan. Go ahead and take a second to tab this page in your own Teacher's Edition for future reference. Now let's take a detailed look at the grammar routine, which will be completed as you move through the selection, and each step is already included in the online lesson planner. First, students learn grammar and apply on their own. In this lesson, the grammar topic is introduced using the Inside Student Reading and Language book. As you can see, this lesson has a gradual release model and immediate corrective feedback are already built in. In the second part of this lesson, students apply the new language on their own through authentic and communicative activities. The How-To box on the student page provides a think aloud for the students that gives them a step-by-step direction for using the appropriate language function. In this case, how to express ideas and feelings. Also, notice the academic language frames in the bottom of the teacher wrap. These transparencies are provided to help you differentiate your instruction for students at different levels as their language grows. And again, immediate corrective feedback is available. The next part of the language and grammar routine is the daily grammar lessons. See this chart at the bottom of the teacher wrap? It lists the transparencies and practice book pages you will use to deliver each daily grammar lesson. Also notice that language transfer issues are identified at the point of use, referring you to a language transfer transparency if applicable. Now let's see exactly how we will teach these grammar lessons. Take a moment to turn to page PD 54 and PD 55 in your Teacher's Edition behind the Teaching Routines and Strategies tab. Following the introduction of the grammar topic, you will build on the topic through the use of 3 grammar transparencies. For each transparency, you will follow this routine. First, teach and model the skill using the top part of the transparency. Then, use the Items in Practice Together section, the bottom half of the transparency, to provide students with structured practice. Next, on the first practice book page, use the items in Try It to provide the students with guided practice. And finally, assign the remaining practice book page for independent practice. The grammar pages are found in the back section of the practice book. Once all 3 transparency lessons are complete, and after students have finished reading the selection, the last step in the routine provides an authentic communicative activity for using the new language and grammar. Within the Connect Across the Curriculum lesson, students apply the grammar in oral and written activities in the student book, and you will assess your students' use of this skill using the Language Acquisition Assessment. The Language Acquisition rubric is found in the bottom of the teacher wrap. If you've already created your first lesson plan using the online lesson planner, you will see that the 5-step grammar plan is built into the plan based on the amount of time you have to work with your students on a daily basis.
So we've built background through the selection overview, and we've introduced the language and grammar focus for the selection. Now it's time to teach key vocabulary and the reading strategy. The goal of the Prepare to Read lesson is to provide highly scaffolded instruction in key vocabulary and the reading strategy. Each unit focuses on a specific reading comprehension strategy, and each selection within that unit will focus on one aspect of that strategy.
Direct vocabulary instruction fuels students' development in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and leads to success in all across the curriculum. In the Prepare to Read key vocabulary lesson, students learn the words critical to understanding the reading selection. Before we look at the systematic, research-based routine that's used to teach the vocabulary, let's look at the key supports found on this page. We'll use angry as an example. Each word is highlighted throughout the text and includes a pronunciation, part of speech, and page where the word first appears. Visual supports for every word you see will see that every visual is an actual photograph. A student-friendly definition is provided to introduce each word, and related words may be provided as well. The opportunity for interactive practice is also provided for the students. And in the teacher wrap, you can see that Spanish cognates, words that sound the same and mean the same in English and Spanish, are identified at the point of use. And additional vocabulary routines are provided for students to use as they practice these words. I mentioned these routines earlier in the Focus on Genre lesson. They are behind the Teaching Routines and Strategies tab. When the authors of Inside selected words to be the focus of the key vocabulary lessons, they selected the words that mattered the most. This means that all key vocabulary words are central to comprehending the selection. Without knowing these words, the reading selection, its theme, main idea, or plot just won't make any sense. The key vocabulary words are also personally valuable to the students because they need these words in order to discuss the guiding question. And these words are high-utility academic words that students will encounter in multiple subject areas and in life. Now that you know what type of words you will be teaching, let's take a look at the explicit, consistent, predictable routine that you will use to teach these words. We begin by having students rate themselves on their previous knowledge of each word. They can do this by holding their fingers close to their chest to represent their comfort level with the word. This is the first step in the routine. The next step is to guide students in correctly pronouncing the word by syllables and as a whole. Now it's time to explain the meaning of the word by studying the visual and using the clear student-friendly examples provided. In the fourth step, elaborate word meanings by asking the probing question in the teacher wrap and have students generate their own examples. And finally, students work with a partner to practice the words using the vocabulary study cards they have created and completing these corresponding practice book pages. Now I'm going to model this routine so you can experience it. How well do you know the word synesthesia? Go ahead and hold up your fingers to represent your knowledge of the word. And don't worry, no one can see you. Our word is synesthesia. Synesthesia. Say it with me. Synesthesia. Do you notice anything familiar in the word? What looks familiar? Maybe syn or thesia? What word does it remind you of? Anesthesia? And what does that word mean? I'm going to take you to step out of the routine for a moment and share the dictionary definition. Do you think this would help your striving readers and English learners understand the meaning of the word? How about the student-friendly example? This morning I thought I had synesthesia. I heard music while I was eating a banana. People with synesthesia might taste sawdust when they touch velvet. Do these student-friendly examples help you understand the meaning of the word? Let's elaborate on the meaning a little. Do you have synesthesia if you eat a banana and you A. taste oranges, or B. hear Mozart? That's right, Mozart. Okay, how about this one? A person with synesthesia might, when he or she would smell dirt while eating a marshmallow, work? Okay, it's time to practice. For this example, let's pretend I asked you to create a definition map for the word. And here's what it might look like.
You just experienced the consistent, predictable routine you will be using with your students. Can you see how this will be helpful in preparing them for encountering these words in the upcoming selections? Don't forget to tab page PD33 behind the Teaching Routines and Strategies tab for additional information about this routine. Insight is built around 8 reading strategies that are robust, general strategies that can be applied to a range of situations and are known to promote adolescents' reading comprehension. The strategies are ones that proficient readers use regularly and across a wide variety of texts. Each unit in Insight targets one single strategy. This concentrated attention to one strategy provides students with multiple opportunities to develop expertise and promote strategy use transfer across genres. In each selection, students focus on one aspect of the unit's comprehension strategy. Be sure to read Dr. David Moore's author monograph, Build Reading Power, Strategies for Comprehension, on page PD7 for more information about the comprehension instruction in Insight.
Following the key vocabulary instruction, the next part of the Prepare to Read lesson focuses on the reading strategy. In step 1, we explicitly teach one aspect of the reading strategy. In this case, planning your reading. In step 2, strategy and action, students will actually look into the text, the very text they're about to read, to bring the strategy to life. In other words, we use the text to teach the text. Notice the sample prediction chart and the strategy in action. These help model the strategy before we get to step 3 and practice together. Now it's time to read the selection, focusing on the reading strategy and vocabulary strategy, though through active reading. Now pause the session and take a few moments to explore the instruction provided for reading the selection. As you explore, keep your students in mind and look for a specific support that you will use. When you have finished exploring, click play to resume the session.
Now that you've had a chance to explore the instruction for the reading selection, let's look at how one teacher, Miss Parker, reads the main selection with her class. We'll start on the opening page of the selection.
On day one, as a whole group, she begins by introducing the genre of the selection, reminding students of their job as a reader, and engaging the students in the selection by previewing some of the selection and analyzing the details of the visual. These steps help prepare students for success in reading and comprehending the selection. This is when Ms. Parker breaks her students up into small groups. While some are listening to the selection CDs or the online coach, she has others buddy reading or reading the selection independently. She groups her students based on their reading level, giving them this opportunity to read or listen to the selection or develop their oral reading fluency without interruption allows them to get familiar with the text before the focus on the reading strategy begins. And don't worry, this is not the only time students will read the selection. When she first started using Insight, Ms. Parker taught her students how to use all of the on-page supports right there in their student books. The key vocabulary is always highlighted within the text, and a brief definition is provided right at point of use so students can quickly access each word. In other words, is an on-page glossary of idioms, colloquialism, and phrases that may be difficult for ELLs to understand. Words and phrases are restated so that students can replace the text with the support found below, and the meaning of the text will still be the same. For example, the selection says, "Some days I still get homesick for Cuba." Down at the bottom of the student page, I can see that get homesick for means the same as feel sad about moving away from. So if I reread the sentence and add it into the text, "Some days I still feel sad about moving away from Cuba," it still has the same meaning. Students will also see frequent opportunities to monitor comprehension as they read and before you move on. As Ms. Parker moved through the units in Insight, she found that she only needed to review these supports every once in a while just to make sure her students were using them to support their reading. During her small group instruction on day one, Ms. Parker has two groups of students she will be working with: her English learners and her striving readers. This is when she begins the active reading of the selecting focus on reading strategy. That means she will provide the reading strategy support found in the teacher rep to make sure they are applying what they've been learning to the reading. Ms. Parker works with her English learners first, and she uses the multi-level strategies provided to help students at each level. Depending on the length of the selection, Ms. Parker chunks the reading into multiple days. One of the great things about Insight is that each of the selections is already chunked for you, and it's very obvious when each new chunk begins. See this red text at the top of the page? Each fiction selection within Insight will have something like this that asks students to set a purpose, preview, or predict before they read the following chunk. Each chunk will also end with a monitor comprehension reminder for students. For nonfiction selections, chunks are determined using section headings, like students have previously seen in their content area texts. Now, while Ms. Parker is reading the selection with her English learners, her other students are working with a partner or independently on a variety of different tasks. The students who are working in groups or pairs and are sometimes grouped by level, and other times Ms. Parker gives students the freedom to choose who they work with. A few of them work as a group on one of the vocabulary routines, creating and using their vocabulary study cards, and she has a pair practicing their expression using the fluency routine. Another group of students reads their Insight library books and works in their student journals. Ms. Parker has a couple of computers in her classroom, so two students are working with the online coach. Since the writing projects in Insight are so tightly woven to the reading, Ms. Parker also has students use this time to work on their writing projects. And if anyone finishes what they're working on before she's ready for them, Ms. Parker posts a practice book assignment on the board. If they don't finish it in class, they already know what they have for homework. Once Ms. Parker's group finishes the reading for the chunk they are working with, she will switch groups. Now, in order to make this run smoothly, Ms. Parker spent some time at the beginning of the year teaching her students the classroom routines they will be using throughout the year. This is key in successful differentiated instruction. On day 2, Ms. Parker does a whole group review of the reading from the day before. In her small group, she will continue the active reading, but this time she will focus on the vocabulary instruction that is built into the teacher wrap. She also takes some time in the small group to work on the daily grammar lessons. The students who aren't working with Ms. Parker are working in pairs, groups, or independently on the routines, inside library, online coach, or appropriate practice book pages. However, today they will work on something that they did not do yesterday. Basically, they rotate each day so that everyone completes all activities. This pattern continues until everyone is finished with the active reading of the selection. The amount of time it will take depends on the length of the selection and the amount of time you have with your students, as well as their proficiency. Some selections within Insight also include an additional reading opportunity such as a poem, song, or interview. These short selections provide an additional opportunity for students to apply what they have learned. In Connect Reading and Writing, students use their new vocabulary to discuss and write about the selection. In Critical Thinking, students demonstrate comprehension by summarizing or retelling the selection. Questions prompt higher order thinking and use of academic language. Students are prompted to assess their fluency and use of the reading strategy and review the key vocabulary both orally and in writing. Connect Reading and Writing also gives them the opportunity to write about the guiding question in response to the selection.
The Connect Across the Curriculum lessons provide additional opportunities to address and develop skills critical to student success across the curriculum. The sections vary from selection to selection, but the last 2 sections will always be language and grammar and writing and grammar. Remember, this is the final step of the language and grammar routine. Pause the session and take a look at the Connect Across the Curriculum lesson in your Teacher's Edition. Look for the following. What supports are provided for the student? What supports are provided for the teacher? And how does this help students connect what they've learned to other curriculum areas?
If we look back at the selection planner, you can see that we have just taken a detailed look at all of the reading and language instruction for Unit 1. Now it's time to look at the writing instruction. The writing in Insight is carefully coordinated so that your students read and write every day. So it is important to implement the writing lessons with their coordinating reading and language lessons. In all writing projects, students will use the knowledge of the genre they are working with in their reading as well as their writing. As you can see in this example, the genre focus for reading was compare and contrast, and as they apply this in their reading, they will also be writing a compare and contrast paragraph. This sample from the online lesson planner clearly reminds us that we need to begin the writing instruction as soon as we have completed the unit launch, focus on genre, and focus on vocabulary lessons. Again, the goal with Insight is to have your students reading and writing on a daily basis. The online lesson planner will help pace this for each day. The writing instruction in Insight has been developed based on the recommendation of the Alliance for Excellent Education in their Writing Next document. They are also designed to help prepare students for success on their state writing exams. The instruction is dynamic, standards-based, and scaffolded. Be sure to read Gretchen Burnaby's author monograph on page PD 22, which identifies the best practices for teaching, writing, and how Insight incorporates these practices right into the instruction. Insight provides a comprehensive scope and sequence of writing in every student writing book to support instruction. Each level begins with the building blocks of writing to ensure that students have a strong foundation. In the building blocks of writing, students are working with paragraph structure. Next, they move on to the writing process, which is taught in explicit detail at each level. The stages of writing are reinforced and extended through all writing projects in the program. And finally, the move on to the Many Writers You Are, where they develop further their writing skills as they take on a variety of writing roles to describe or explain, as a researcher or a reporter, to summarize, etc. It's important to note that since there are only 8 units per level, each unit has multiple writing projects, and some projects will extend across selections. Now let's take a detailed look at the writing instruction for the unit we've been working with, Level C, Unit 1. Then I will show you a few of the key features you will find in some of the other projects. Each writing project or group of projects begins with a project planner page in the Teacher's Edition, like the one seen here. On it you will find the writing form the students will be working on, and the targeted writing trait for the project, as well as the rubric for the writing traits with the current trait highlighted. You'll also see the lesson overview and suggested pacing information. And finally, you'll have suggestions for ways you can help your students plan. Here we only see one example, but as you move further into the program, a variety of options are provided. Every writing project in Inside will begin with a model study. First, students make connections to the type of writing they will be doing. Then it's time to teach the writing type and introduce specific key features. A feature checklist is provided for each writing project. Ms. Parker likes to recreate these checklists on chart paper and post them in the room as a reminder for students while they work on the project. These checklists get to the heart of the writing form. The next step of the model study lesson is to focus on the key features using the callouts to call through the student model and map the features. These models provide concrete samples that make abstract concepts clear and provide a source for evaluation and inspiration. Throughout the writing project, students will continue to encounter and use new academic vocabulary, and they will have multiple opportunities to compare various writing forms. In our example, the next step is to connect students to the writing strategy through What It's Like. Take a moment to read this sample. Notice that these What's It Like boxes give students the opportunity to see what the strategy is like in real life. They often introduce a specific element of the strategy. Then it's time to follow the gradual release model in teaching the writing strategy, beginning with teaching and modeling the strategy. And moving on to practice. Writing strategy support is also provided through the multi-level strategies to support students at every level. The next step is for students to plan and begin their writing by first introducing and analyzing the writing prompt. Then they plan their writing. As you model the steps for planning the writing, you can see that academic language frames are provided to help meet the needs of all your students. And next, students will write a draft and then revise. Once students have completed the revisions of their content, it's time to edit and proofread. Students go through the process of checking the grammar and spelling, the mechanics, and their handwriting. But it's already done is not an appropriate response. The mechanics workout provides multiple opportunities to practice identifying the fixing of errors in their writing. At times, there may be some language transfer issues that English learners might face when it comes to the mechanics of their writing. If that is the case, those transfer issues will be identified at point of use in the bottom of the teacher wrap. We've just finished looking at the instruction for one complete writing project from the Building Blocks of Writing section. Now I want to share a few additional features that you will find throughout the remaining projects. First, a student-friendly rubric is provided for each of the 5 writing traits students will be working with. Within the teacher wrap, you will also find reference to academic language frames to help students discuss the rubric scores and explain why they have assigned a specific score. We already saw this in the project we just looked at. But I just wanted to remind you that all writing project instruction incorporates the gradual release of responsibility model. Within Inside, students not only learn how to write a literary response and other necessary types of writing, they also see what they can do to raise the score. Anchor papers provide excellent opportunities for students to discuss why the papers provided received the scores they did, and the tips in the margins let students know what could be done to improve their score. In the teacher wrap, you have specific instructions for marking each of the transparencies to demonstrate how the student could raise their score. Within Inside, students also have a variety of ways to publish and present their final projects. The teacher wrap includes opportunities to assess students' technology skills. Found at the end of each student writing book, there is an abundance of resources for student usage to further support them becoming great writers. These resources are also accessible to students online. The writer's files, which include samples of different types of writing forms for students A through Z, as well as writing organizers. A variety of handbooks are also included to help students with grammar usage, handwriting, and spelling. Finally, once all three reading selections and the writing projects are complete, students have various opportunities to reflect on their reading and compare across texts and the unit wrap-up. A unit wrap-up is also provided where students reflect on and discuss the genre focus and reading strategy they have been working on, the guiding question, and the unit library book they read. Notice in the teacher wrap, there are ideas for students to respond to the literature. As you can see, Inside includes a lot of instruction designed to improve academic achievement. Another great feature in Inside is that right up front you can see exactly which skills are going to be tested. This helps you plan for instruction. Here is an example of the instructional focus page that is found at the beginning of each unit. Using this key here at the bottom of the page, we can see what types of skills are being tested. The red T's are skills tested on selection tests and/or unit reading and language tests. The blue T's are skills tested using the language acquisition assessment, and the orange T's are skills tested on the unit writing test. You can also see the tested skills, still color-coded, in the objectives box for each lesson. As you can see in these three examples, sometimes everything in the lesson will be tested while other lessons may only have a few elements that will be tested. These T's are your answer. They are your non-negotiables because if it's a tested skill in Inside, it's a tested skill on standardized state tests. So they help you easily identify which lessons and parts of lessons need to be covered. Now let's look at all of the assessment tools available in Inside, and except for the placement and gains test, everything is available right there in your assessment handbook and online on Inside Teaching. You can find a more detailed chart on page T3 of your assessment handbook. The Inside Placement Test places students into the appropriate level of Inside by reading level or Lexile. The Reading Level Gains Test provides ongoing progress monitoring that comes in 3 parallel forms, so it can be used throughout the year to show signs and gains that students are making in reading. Both of these assessments yield a Lexile. The English Language Gains Test also has 3 parallel forms to determine students' language proficiency level, beginning, intermediate, or advanced. These can be used throughout the year to show the gains students are making in language development. There are 4 main assessment tools in Inside that will help you monitor the progress of your students. The selection tests, the unit tests for reading and language and writing, the language acquisition rubrics, and the unit reflection and self-assessments. We'll begin with the selection tests.
Selection tests are designed to check student progress and provide an early indicator that reteaching or additional instruction may be necessary. Selection tests are formative evaluations designed to measure key vocabulary, grammar and sentence structure, and reading comprehension.
After scoring your selection test using the answer key in the back of the assessment handbook or utilizing your e-assessment platform, use the selection test class profile to determine if students need reteaching. If a student doesn't master a specific reporting category, reteaching is necessary. You may want to use different colored highlighters or markers to help you easily see which students need reteaching in each reporting category. Using this reteaching key and sample class profile, we can see that 4 students need reteaching in key vocabulary. 2 students need reteaching in grammar and reading comprehension. If your school or school district has purchased the e-assessment platform, all of this is done for you with ease and automatically once the students' answer sheets have been scanned in or they complete their selection test online. Be sure to check back for On-Demand Module 4, Getting Started with Inside e-Assessment, to learn how to access these reports. For more information or for pricing, please contact your local representative. In the reading and language unit test, students apply the key concepts and skills they have learned throughout the unit across all 3 selections to new reading selections and materials. These tests are designed to be rigorous and thereby familiarize students with state test formats, track student progress, and provide prescriptions for reteaching. The reading and language unit test assesses students in vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, reading comprehension, and literary analysis, as well as the reading strategy. In addition to measuring the key skills taught within the unit, the items on the writing unit test are written to 3 theme-related selections. These selections match the readability of the literature selections in the program level and include the graduated use of graphic support. After scoring your student's test using the answer key in the back of the assessment handbook, seen here on the left, use the student profile for unit tests to determine if students need reteaching. If a student doesn't master a specific reporting category, reteaching is necessary. Okay, I've mentioned reteaching a few times now, so let me show you where you find the reteaching lessons that are developed for you. Begin by logging into the Inside Teaching website at insideng.com. After selecting Access Resources from the opening page, select the Inside level you are working with and click on the Reteaching Lessons link at the bottom of the menu. All of the reteaching lessons for this unit are here on this screen. This column contains the link to the PDF for all of the reteaching lessons. Once you click on the link for the appropriate reteaching lesson, the PDF opens and you're ready to print. Here you can see a sample of reteaching lessons for key vocabulary. The first page of the document includes the instructional path for reteaching, the key vocabulary words. It lets you know that the third page of the document is provided for as a visual reminder for students. After students make their vocabulary study cards for the words they need to work on, it's time for them to practice the words using the cards they created. Each of these activities is a different way for them to practice. Ms. Parker writes the unit and selection she used a specific practice activity so she can alternate the activities evenly. Here is part of the Reading Comprehension Literary Analysis reteaching lesson. This is a 35-page document, but it is the same document for all literary analysis reteaching needs. On the front of the reteaching packet for reading comprehension and literary analysis, you can see which literary devices and elements are tested in each unit and which pages of the packet contain the reteaching lessons for that element. Take a moment to pause the session and think about how you will use the reteaching lessons in your classroom. Ms. Parker implements her reteaching lessons in a variety of ways. Sometimes she uses the reteaching lessons during her small group instruction. Once a week, she works with the other teachers on her team and they divide up the students based on their reteaching needs. She also has had the students work on the reteaching lessons during their after-school tutorial lessons. Each unit in Insight contains numerous opportunities for students to use language as they participate in authentic communication. You can use the language acquisition rubrics as you observe students during their activities to assess their progress in language acquisition. Each unit offers 3 performance assessment opportunities in language development, and you can work with pairs or small groups so that the assessment process is manageable. These language development assessment opportunities are part of the Connect Across the Curriculum lesson, and they are the final step of the language and grammar routine. Personal interests and attitudes affect motivation. Motivation is an important factor in reading and writing performance. The effective measures provided will help you and your students pursue their interests in and examine their attitudes toward reading and writing. The metacognitive ability to monitor, evaluate, and adjust the processes used while reading and writing is essential to become an effective reader and writer. The metacognitive measures help you and your students think about and improve the ways they read and write. The effective and metacognitive measures are found toward the back of the assessment handbook and online. As you can see, there are measures for both reading and writing. All of the information I have just shared regarding the Insight assessments comes directly from the front of the assessment handbook. Be sure to take some time reading through this information and finding the assessments that will work best for you. Insight offers summative assessments to help you measure students' mastery of standards over time. 2 summative assessments are offered in levels C through E. The mid-level tests measure a students' performance in the targeted skills covered in units 1 through 4. And the end-of-level tests measure students' performance in the targeted skills covered in units 1 through 8 in 5 areas: vocabulary, reading comprehension, literary analysis, grammar and sentence structure, spelling, and writing. Test results can be used as one measure to determine if a student is ready to exit from the program. Congratulations, you have almost completed the 3rd on-demand module for Insight. In this section, we took a detailed look at the instruction for the entire unit, including the unit launch and all of the selections. We walked through a writing project and some of the key features found in the writing instruction. And finally, we just finished an in-depth look at the assessment tools Insight offers for progress monitoring, reteaching, and formative assessment. Here are some next steps to think about before your next session. Use your assessment handbook to find the assessment tools that work best for you, your school, your district, and your students. And go to Insight Teaching and access the reteaching lessons. If you have e-assessment in place, know that all of the reteaching lessons will be given prescriptively based off of a student's mastery or non-mastery of specific skills. We want to thank you for attending. Please don't forget to check the Attachments tab on the left side of the screen for your certificate of completion, and check back soon for your next module. As a reminder, if your district or school has purchased Insight e-assessment, or if they have purchased the online coach, please go to modules 4 and 5 for help with those particular subscriptions. Thank you.